Welcome back to the program. A very weird news day. So first thing that I want to start with is the One Big Beautiful Bill. There was a lot of really interesting things in that bill, okay? Not just the dome and the money for ICE and, of course, the money for the border wall and so many other interesting things. Of course, welfare reform, back to the Clinton era type of welfare reform requiring 80 hours a month, which is like nothing, 20 hours a week, right? And you can work from home and you can phone it in. You can do all this. You don't have to go into the office. You can volunteer. I mean, they made it like really easy. And of course, the left is freaking out. How dare you force us to go out and get a job, right? But the other thing that I wanted to point out in the bill is, again, and I've said this before, so I'm kind of repeating myself, the 28 different executive orders. One of those executive orders was the one on January 20th, which I believe was number 14157. And this was the one that designated 8 organizations, drug cartels, if you will, as terrorist organizations or global terrorist groups, right? That was codified into law, okay? This is really important. Now, why is it important? Well, I'm going to get to that in a second, but these are the names of these cartels. So you have the Sinaloa cartel, you have the Jalisco Nueva cartel, you have the Noreste cartel, you have the Golfo cartel, you have the La Nueva Familia Mexicana, I can't even really pronounce it, cartel. You have the Carteles Unidos. And of course, you have what people probably don't know the actual name, Mara Salvatrucha, which means MS-13. And of course, the Tren de Aragua group, TDA, as well. Now, why am I pointing this out? Well, I'm pointing this out because the United States military has been training the Mexican military for the past few months. Now, I don't know exactly why, but I would assume because this is now codified into law, this is no longer an executive order, this is now law. These are now designated as terrorist organizations, which means that they would fall under what I think it's called the Authorization to Use Military Force, AUMF, which again would probably have to go through Congress. But it's interesting that they're training the Mexican military right now. So, I don't know. We're going to have to see what happens. Me personally, we saw how well the GBU 157s, the bunker busters, have worked. I don't see why we can't use them on the drug cartels and then send in the Mexican military, so we don't have boots on the ground, to play cleanup. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. So, no one's covering that. That's why I pointed it out. Okay, so here's a very strange story. So, you probably have heard, I don't know, maybe you haven't, it was just breaking now, but one of the executives from American Idol and her husband were found shot to death in their Los Angeles mansion. And the suspect has already been caught. A suspect is now in custody more than 24 hours after an American Idol executive and her husband were found brutally murdered in their Los Angeles mansion. According to the Daily Mail, the suspect was identified as 22-year-old Raymond Budarian. Now, I have done my research trying to find out his ethnicity. Can't do it. No one's reporting it as of yet. I'm not sure what that last name is, but clearly it's not just a white ethnicity. The people are not reporting that on purpose, right? Because again, that's what they always do when it's someone they don't want to have revealed. What I do know is all the pictures that are out show him as a little kid, as like a 12, 13, 14-year-old kid. And clearly he's 22, so that's not the case. And from what I understand, he was burglarizing their house, a $5.6 million estate in Los Angeles. And he was there for about 30 minutes. He did not like break anything to get in. He actually just figured out a way to get in through like an unlocked door. And as he was in the process of burglarizing their home, they surprised him and they came home. And apparently there was some type of a struggle, and he ended up shooting them in the head, both of them, multiple times, I'm understanding, to kill them. And so, like I said, I can't find any newer pictures of him. I haven't seen it yet. I'll keep looking for them. If I do, I'll let you know. But they say that he didn't know who these people were or anything like that. But pretty crazy story. So apparently they got him. And let's see, the victims, sadly, were Robin Kay, a music producer on the hit show American Idol, and her husband, Thomas DeLuca. Los Angeles police arrived to the couple's home for a welfare check on Monday afternoon, and neighbors hadn't seen them in 4 days. Police saw blood at the entrance of the house and discovered Thomas DeLuca with gunshot wounds to the head. Robin Kay's body was found in a separate room, meeting the same description. Cops were previously called to the home Thursday. An unidentified suspect was seen trying to gain entry and may have been armed with a firearm, neighbors said. And someone spotted a person hopping a fence and called the police. So my thoughts and prayers obviously go out to the victims. It's a horrific and horrible thing that happened. And, you know, they caught this person. But this is Los Angeles. I mean, honestly, do you even think they're going to charge him? I mean, I hope they do. You know, I don't have any faith in these big blue cities anymore with their no bail laws, soft on crime prosecutors and attorney generals and everything else. So I don't know. Let's see what happens. I'm hoping that they actually do their job. And maybe things are changing. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. Now, this is a really crazy story, but it's not because we heard about it. This is the Minnesota political assassin who killed the Minnesota legislature and I guess her husband, and then went to another house and shot 2 other people, right? This is this Vance Belter guy. So apparently he has dropped a confession letter that he actually sent to Kash Patel, to FBI Director Kash Patel. And it's pretty crazy. It's pretty long, but I'll kind of go through some of it here. Dear Kash Patel, my name is Dr. Vince Luther Brother EDD. That's a weird way of saying his name. I am the shooter at large in Minnesota involved in the June 22nd shootings the morning of Saturday, June 21st at approximately 2:30 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. And by the time you read this letter, I will probably be dead by the time you read this letter. I guess you repeated it twice. I want to share some info with you that you may find interesting. I was trained, this is what he's saying now. I was trained by U.S. military people off the books starting in college. I may have been on projects since that time in Eastern Europe, South Africa, the Middle East, and Africa, all in the line of duty, what I thought was right and in the best interest of the United States. Recently, I was approached about a project that Tim Walz, he brings up Tim Walz again, wanted done, and it says redacted and redacted. We're also aware of the project. Tim wanted me to kill Minnesota Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. And then it says, Ken redacted is to retire as planned. Tim wants to be a senator, and he doesn't trust redacted to retire as planned, and that he is going to stay at the last minute with Amy. Gave Tim would get one of the open Senate seats, and redacted wants to be governor, and Keith Ellison would be head of the redacted governor's position. I told him that I wasn't willing to do what it was that he wanted me to do and to call off the plan, that I would go, if he didn't call off the plan, I would go public. He said that he would call it off. That's great if I didn't play ball. Then he set up a meeting with me and redacted to talk about guns. When I arrived, they had some people waiting to kill me. I was able to get away by God's mercy, and I went back a short time later and started what redacted. You should note how I didn't fire one round at any police officers, and boy, did I have plenty of opportunity to do so. Ask for the report on how my weapons and ammunition that I had with me, and the cops were pulling up right next to me in their vehicles, and I had an AK-47 and a pistol in my hand, and I could have left a pile of dead cops. But I did not shoot or provoke law enforcement. You can ask them, because I support the police and don't want to see them hurt. But if they are hurting my wife and kids next time, I won't give them a pass either. If you think I'm making this all up, just get on the phone and tell Tim you have a few questions for him. Then ask Tim Walz if he knows me and see what he says. If he says he doesn't know me and never met me, look into his files and you will see that Tim Walz personally approved me to be on his governor's workforce boards as a small business representative. He is probably trying to destroy that information as we speak, but it is public record. Then ask Tim Walz why they kept the story silent from the media when this all first happened. Not a word in the press about it. Why is that? They needed to get their redacted story figured out first so everyone was on the same page about what happened. Tim is probably crapping bricks right now because I'm still at large and he knows what I can do and what I know about all the buried skeletons. So I will be shot on sight. You can bet on that. If you want me to turn myself in, it will need to be directly to you and Dan. Obviously, I guess he meant Bongino. I need to be held at a military prison at a base in the Middle East, or at least on a ship. These guys have their claws everywhere and can get to anybody. I am willing to spill all the beans. I just want my family to be safe. They had nothing to do with this and are totally innocent. This was a one-person operation. So he's pretty on the Tim Walz told me to do this bandwagon here. I don't know if that's true or not, but knowing what a lying piece of garbage that tampon Tim Walz is, I call him Tim Conway's long-lost brother, the knucklehead. I'm dating myself there. I'm sure people know who Tim Conway is. Carol Burnett show. Anyway, long story short. So, I don't know. I wouldn't put it past him. I'm not going to come out and say that it's definitely true because I can't verify that. But he is a knucklehead. We already know he's a liar. We already know that he has stolen valor. We already know that he spent time in the CCP in China and Tiananmen Square, honeymoon there, and he's just a disaster of an excuse of a human being, let's face it. So I don't know. But I would love to see Tim Walz under penalty of perjury in a deposition, a public videotaped deposition. If you thought he was stuttering and stammering during the beatdown that Vice President J.D. Vance gave him, just imagine with prosecutors sitting there in a deposition saying, okay, what about this? What about that? Tell me about this. When did you know him? When did you see him? You know, why is he saying all these things? Man, I would love to see that, but we don't know if that'll happen either. So anyway. All right. Last thing, and then we'll wrap up. So I don't know if you know this, but there is a Rescission Act process going on right now in the Senate. And what this is, I've explained this months and months and months ago. One way to claw back some of the bad spending is to take spending that hasn't been allocated yet and basically have the president, which he's done, request a rescission. In other words, take back those spending. Take back that spending. And so, what's his name? Big Johnson, right? Mike Johnson said that moving forward, they were going to do numerous of these types of spending cuts, right? These little rescission packages. Well, wouldn't you know it, the rhinos, right, of course, would never want to cut one dime. The Kentucky Fried Chicken, Mitch McConnell. You have, of course, Susan Collins. And you have the fake senator from Alaska, who is illegitimate, I might add. Remember, she lost her primary and then did a write-in campaign as an independent. And let's not forget, her father, Frank Murkowski, actually appointed her into the Senate. So she's actually never really won a Senate race. She was a write-in as an independent because she got beat in the Democrat primary. But that's a story for another day. So she also is another one. So you have three rhinos that are not interested in cutting any of the Doge cuts. J.D. Vance to the rescue. He is now in the process of coming back to Washington to be the tiebreaker. But how sad is that? How sad is that we have control of the Senate, we have control of the House, and in order to get anything done, including, by the way, the one big beautiful bill, we need the vice president to come in and be the deciding vote. That is sickening when you think about it, okay? And now, here's the other part. They have until the 18th because of the Impoundment Act. Once it's past the 18th, they can't even do it. So it's got to happen in the next few days. Now, because they changed a few revisions in it, it's now got to go back to the House. And they have to approve it. Then it's got to go back to the Senate. And as long as the House doesn't make any changes, then it would have to go back to the Senate again. And then they'd have to rework it. And it's not going to be enough time. So they took out funding for HIV and AIDS, I think, in Africa or something like that. It's about time they fund their own stuff, right? And that was the one major change. But because they took that out, now it has to go back to the House, and the House has to approve the current version. If they approve the current version, they can rush it to President Trump by the 18th and sign it, and you'll have, I think it's $9 billion or something like that in Doge cuts. But it just shows not only the disconnect, but just the disassociation and the dysfunction, let's really call it what it is, of Washington. I mean, we are in control. We have the House, we have the Senate, and we need J.D. Vance to get anything done. I mean, thank God we have him, right? But still, it's so dysfunctional. It's sad. But hey, that's the D.C. swamp. That's how it works, unfortunately. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.